For us, as far as the Bible is concerned, at this stage is the National Telecom Policy, which has visualized a lot of things because the National Telecom Policy was issued in 2012. And at that stage also, they had visualized that for broadband networks, the right of the broadband, which we talked at a later stage, is already part of the National Telecom Policy. And National Telecom Policy refers to the speeds of up to 100 megabit per second. So in 2012, they had visualized. And it is having targets assigned up to year 2020. So at this stage, we are at the halfway stage. Very ambitious broadband targets are assigned, with minimum speed being 2 megabit and going up to 100 megabit on demand. If the type of the targets which have been assigned, very recently, as far as the national GDP is concerned, we have reached a level of 7.8. With the broadband increase of 10%, possibly we can achieve 1% growth rate in the GDP. So we have a potential of at least 5% growth in the GDP over the next 4 or 5 years if the assigned targets which we have visualized in the National Telecom Policy, they are achieved. But then again, there are a number of areas where the bottlenecks are there. The bottlenecks are in the form of, there are still a few tens of thousands of villages which still don't have the connectivity. Those who have the connectivity, they don't have possibilities of achieving high-speed broadband. What they can achieve is sort of a very low-speed connectivity. Internet connectivity is possible for many of the villages, but high speed is still far away from that. In our networks, even in urban areas, there is a lot of improvement is required to be there because our network at this stage, they are not able to meet the present level of the speeds which the users are making use of, which is very much on the lower side. Still, we have a lot of cord drops taking place in the networks, which is actually an indication that the infrastructure is required to be augmented. It could be in the form of more towers, it could be in the form of more BTSs, it could be in the form of drawbacks, could be in the form of spectrum-related issues also. But the key issue is a lot of things are required to be done, which calls for the massive infrastructure investments by the operators. At present, operators are required to pay because they are required to participate in the bidding process to get the spectrum. So sizable portion of the investable funds are actually going into the spectrum, and very limited funds are available for the augmentation of the existing networks. So we'll have to see how, as far as this bottleneck areas are concerned, how the industry can make best use of that. So the government also will have to come forward with some ideas, because the government may like to have some things. The digital dreams of the nation are concerned, you see, that everyone would like to be fulfilled. But for the fulfillment of those digital dreams, the digital India to be available to the last corner of the city, we have to make much more efforts, where the industry, the government, everyone has to sit together and try to plan for the future. In the very first presentation we had, there was a mention of that most of the equipments, almost 90% of the items are being imported. Hardly 10% of the procurement is being taking place from the indigenous sources. It is not that India does not have the capabilities. I would like to tell you that in India, we are having the TSDSI, that is a standardization body, which is right now working on the 5G standards. 5G networks, they have not come. The 5G networks will come after at least another 7-8 years. But the standardization process has already started. For machine-to-machine communication, the work has already started. So in the latest area, so TSDSI becomes the seventh standardization body at the international level, which is recognized. And recently in April, they had meetings also. So we can have the standardization. Based on the Indian standards, we can move to the next step as far as the research and development activity is concerned. At present, we are having CDOT, Central Development of Telematics. So they are doing the R&D in the government sector. Some R&D activities are also going on in the private sector also. But to achieve our targets, you see, when the standards are being formulated in India, and we are also having telecom centers of excellence which are supported by the industry, each major player in India, and along with the academic institutions like IITs and IIMs. So they are supporting telecom centers of excellence, which also are carrying out some sort of R&D activities. So with the standardization being there and the R&D activity being there, and C.Dot also does the technology transfer also. They have already transferred the technologies to almost 10, 15 industries in India, including for the defense sector like Bharat Electronics, ECL, etc. They have also taken the technology from C.Dot. So if we can give more emphasis to the Indian-based standards, Indian-based R&D activities, and based on that, the manufacturing really taking place in the India, so in that case, the situation is going to change drastically. Because at present, whatever the equipments which we are having in our networks, they are basically not really, the basic design is for the networks in Europe. And then the same networks we are actually trying to use even in the rural areas. We really don't need the same network in urban area. The network being used in the urban area and the rural area, they can be totally different. Because the type of the requirements, it is like you see a comparison between a BMW car and a Jeep being used. So BMW will not be effective in rural areas. So the same way you see as far as standards are concerned. So in rural areas, if you are having different type of networks which can cater really for the rural requirements, then what possibly could have, we can go in for the optimization of the power, and we can have solutions in rural areas where you need much less power based on the real requirement of the rural areas. Then you can go in for solar-based solutions, which at present are not deployed by the operators. So we have to think of a policy shift. Each operator has to see that how, if we have to achieve our targets of digitalization, what changes really are required to be there.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatnagar. I think that was very enlightening. Probably if you could also take a minute and touch upon the NOFIN and the 250,000 villages that they were getting connected to. And why is the telecom department not looking at technologies like white space and so many other things are available today? People were also talking about how you could use the existing infrastructure of the TV antennas to use it to penetrate in the villages, especially when you're talking about villages. There are various solutions available today. So what is happening on that front?
You see, the government normally is quite slow to as far the changes are concerned.
I'll be remaining in this room, so please.
Okay. I would like to give one example. Naxalite affected areas, they were having practically no coverage was there. And when